Shalom. Let's talk about something that's incredibly basic. It is perhaps the most basic thing that there possibly can be. It is all about what connects us as a people, as being Jewish, what connects almost all peoples in their culture, what they share, what they talk over, what in fact sustains us, keeps us living every day, every single day. And we all do it. I want to talk about food. How many of you have ever heard the expression, you are what you eat? That's very, very Jewish. We are what we eat. In fact, not very many people know this or realize it, but our kashrut, our kosher laws, our dietary laws, the things that our tradition, God, our rabbis, our abbas and imas tell us is good for us and what we should eat, and things that we should stay away from, are actually very, 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 very ancient. And a lot of them are very, very akin to African tribal laws. You are what you eat. You ever hear that? You are what you eat. A lot of what we eat or we don't eat, a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it has to do with, do we want to pick up the characteristics of the spirit of that animal? Now, if we valued hunting, for instance, we wanted to be a great hunter, and that's what we wanted to be, we would do what a lot of tribes do in Africa and the Near East. We would go and we would hunt and we would eat the heart of a lion, because a lion is a great hunter. And a lion is brave, so we want to take on, we ingest, we bring into our bodies the things that we want ourselves to become, because we indeed are. But that, being a lion and being a hunter, is not something that we really value very much. And I can hear my son coming around the corner, because I'm actually doing this in our kitchen, which is the home of our food, where I cook all the time. Now let me tell you a few things about what is kosher and what is not kosher. Our kashrut laws. Just hold on for 1 second. I am back. Let's say something right off the bat that will make most parents very, very happy. And maybe some kids not, but hopefully you will learn to love them. All grains, all fruits, all vegetables, they're all kosher. Apples, kosher. Bananas, kosher. Wheat, kosher. Grains, we'll talk about that in another video. For 8 days, there's a hint. For 8 days, not so much. But for the rest of the year, so wheat cereals, anything that has just fruit and just grains or just vegetables, woo, just like that. Woo, it's kosher. That's not so strange. But, the minute we get into anything that is a meat or a meat byproduct, it becomes a little bit more complicated and a little bit more bizarre. So hold on to your hats, hold on to your seats, because this is the way it is. And there's also a couple of ew moments in this. Okay. Let's start with sea life. Things that live in the water primarily. I'm not just saying fishes, anything. Anything. If it lives in the water, it is kosher if it has scales and fins. Scales and fins. So, salmon, yes. Shrimp, no. One of the reasons you are what you eat is that stuff like shrimp and stuff like lobsters and stuff like crabs and oysters and all that sort of, they're scavengers. They pick up garbage, well, we would consider garbage in terms of food, garbage, off the ground, under the sea, of course, but on the ground. And we don't want to be scavengers, so we don't do that. So, sea life, fins and scales. So yes to trout, no to dolphins and whales, and guess what? No to shark. So you're safe out there, sharks. Now, let's move on to fowl. Birds. Birds, if they are not birds of prey, they're pretty much kosher. Because again, remember what we said about the lion. We don't want to pick up the traits of hunting so much. So, if a bird is a bird of prey, very basically, not kosher. But if a bird is not a bird of prey, pretty much so. There are specific instances, one way or the other, and you can read years and years. In fact, people do, they read all the time, look in the Torah. And keep in mind that kosher in the Torah is not necessarily the only things we keep kosher and not kosher beyond. And we'll talk about that in the second video as well. We're about a minute away from an ew moment. Now we got, remember, fish, sea life, which is more than just fish, but sea life. We have birds, and now we have things, animals that walk on the earth. Now, there are two requirements for it to be kosher. One is kind of a little bit bizarre, and the other is really bizarre. And ew. So here we go. You ready? The first requirement for something, animal that walks on the ground, on the earth, and it is okay, kosher, it has to have a split hoof. Not a whole hoof like a horse, a split hoof like a deer or a cow or a bull, cattle. That's the first one. That's a kind of a little bit weird one, right? But it's not the ew one. Here's the ew one. You ready? Look around. You might want to call people over because they won't believe you if you say this. And they'll almost believe you if you say, well, you know what? Mr. Spinrad said this. But if they watch the video, you have proof. Okay? So, big breath. You're not in the middle of eating something right now, I hope. Okay? Because it might get messy. Split hooves are one. And the second requirement is that the animal has to chew its own cud. Now you might go, ha, 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 Mr. Spinrad, that doesn't sound so ew. But then you think and you go, well, what does chewing your own cud mean, Mr. Spinrad? And I'll tell you that. It means that the animal has to eat its own vomit. And you thought that cauliflower was a little bit eat its own vomit, because that's what animals like cows do. They have 4 stomachs. There's a lot of tummy ache. 4 stomachs. So what they do is they eat something like the grass, and you can't digest the grass just as it is. They eat the grass, they digest it, not out of the mouth, they keep it in the mouth, and then they eat it again. And that's how they digest it. It may seem a little bit not exactly Shabbat dinner manners at the table for us, but it makes perfect sense, and it's the way that they live. So it's not weird that they do it. It's a little weird and insightful that that is what our kashrut laws are. So that takes care of basically all foods. Now there are foods we're going to get into later that you can't mix together, you can't cook together. There are some things that are categorized in meat, fleshic, that are there, and there are some things you would think would be there, but they're not there. But it will all become clear in the next installment of How Jews Eat. Have a nice dinner. Have a nice breakfast. Have a nice lunch. Be well. We're also going to take a tour of my kitchen, because not only the type of food and the combination of foods make something kosher or not, but also how you cook them, and on what you cook them, and how you cook them. All of these things. It sounds complicated, but you get used to it. And it's actually a lot of fun to cook that way. It's very challenging sometimes. So, until next time, like I said, have nice, yummy, healthy things in your tummy. And be well. And I will be seeing you soon. Take care. Shalom.